welcome on stage and put your hands together for Rajesh Ramakrishnan.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm painfully aware that I stand between you and lunch, so I'll definitely keep this to 20 minutes. Just a disclaimer, I am not going to be talking tech. I think the experts have done it, and that's not really something that I focus on. But what I thought I'll do in the next 20 minutes is bring together two seemingly different areas, topics, but there are some connections. One of them is photography. I'm passionate about photography. I've been doing that for about 15 years now. So I thought I'll draw some lessons from photography. And the other part is transformation. So I work for Perfetti. I'm very happy to see the mentors on all the tables, and I hope you're all consuming them. So what I thought I'll do is, I was lucky to be a part of the transformation that we embarked about 5 years ago for the business. And that really had some very, very good results for us in terms of over the last 5 years, the business has really done well for us, both top line, bottom line, gaining share and so on. So I thought I'll draw some lessons from photography which are relevant in any transformation. So all of you might be going through transformation in your own spaces. And I think there are some things that you can borrow from there which hopefully is of use to you. So that's what I thought I'll do. And what I would also say is that happy to keep it engaging. So if you have any questions at any point of time, feel free to sort of put your hand up and we can take that. Okay, so all of the pictures that you see here have been shot by me. I just wanted to start with saying that, photography is something, this is a passion, and it's actually helped me open up my creative side of me. And my strong belief is that all of us can be photographers, and with the phones and the kind of technology that is there, that sort of makes it even more easier. And it's really how we look at things versus what we see that makes a big difference, right? So this was something that I shot in the Kumbh Mela in Nasik a few years ago. My hand was in my mouth when I gave him my camera because he wanted to take a look at it. But fortunately, no damage done, and he gave it back to me in one piece. So that was good. Okay, so if I were to look at photography, and then the question is, what is common between photography and transformation? I think the first thing about any transformation is, like strategy. Strategy is about making choices, right? What do you want to do? And equally important, what do you not want to do? So if you look at composition, right? What is composition? It's what we see in the frame in a picture, right? It's about what we keep in the picture, but more importantly, what we leave out of the picture. I'm sure you can relate to it. How many times have you taken a picture where you're taking a picture of a friend or a family and there is a telephone pole sticking out of their head? Anyone done that? Yeah? So obviously you can't move the telephone pole anywhere, but you could certainly ask those people to shift a little bit so that it doesn't look bad, right? So it's really about just being, observant of what we do and making those choices. In transformation, and I'll share some examples from what we did in Perfetti, it's really about saying, what are those things that are going well for us, which we would like to continue? What are some things that we would like to do more of? And what are those things that we would like to eliminate? So one of the things that we did was we created a burning platform and a really sense of urgency. And this does not mean panic, right? The worst thing to do in a transformation is to create panic where everybody wants to jump off the platform. But really just create an inspiring vision and actually make it come alive and articulate it in a manner that people connect to it, right? So making it visible and making it inspiring. So in our case, what did we do? We sort of went around the organization and asked people, what comes to your mind when we say Perfetti? And the interesting thing that came up was, the visualization was of a Ferrari which was stuck in first gear. Now, what does that mean? A Ferrari is obviously something which is very, very prestigious, premium, high-end, high performance, and so on. So it was a company that was doing well, had a great run for about 18 years, but yeah, there were some niggles, macro, micro, etc., which was sort of slowing it down and making it plateaued a little bit. And that's what we needed to fix. So the visualization was all about Ferrari, but running it first gear. So the whole challenge for the organization was, how do we get to run this in top gear, right? And that's something that all of us could connect to in a visual manner. And from there came out the logo and this thing for the transformation. We called it Sparkle because we said, the company was doing really well in the past. We just wanted to reignite that spark and get the company going back into a growth trajectory. So therefore, the logo of Sparkle, a whole bunch of people growing together and taking the company to greater heights. So one of the things is to see how we can find a unifying theme in terms of what do we want to do and sort of making that come alive. I'm not getting into details, but the three strategic pillars for us during that transformation process, one was how do we get the growth back? And to that, there were two aspects. We had a large portfolio of brands from chewing gum, Center Fruit, Center Fresh to Mentos to Chupa Chups and so on. So how do we optimize our portfolio so that we have a strong reason to exist as far as the consumers are concerned? The other piece, just as a matter of interest, we are available in 5 million outlets across the country, and we directly service 1.1 million outlets, right? So staggering numbers in terms of the kind of reach that we have. But interestingly, if you look at the number of outlets where confectionery products are present, that's almost 8 million. So there is still a lot of headroom in terms of opportunity. So the second piece we wanted to do there was, how do we optimize our route to market? And that's something that we worked on. The second big bucket was get the profitability going, which is how do we get efficiency in the manufacturing piece, and also how do we optimize our vast supply chain network, right? So those were the two pieces as far as that is concerned. And last but not the least was investing in enablers, which was all around the right org structure, the right people, right capability, and so on, and also making sure that we are leveraging technology in the right manner, right? So these were the three pieces, and that's how we worked upon the transformation. Before I get into the lesson 2, any guesses on what this is? Bulls in the water, okay? Anybody else? Atika, you had a thought? Yeah. Wow, okay, that's a new one. I haven't heard that one before. And I usually ask this question when I make this presentation. It's actually 4 ducks swimming in the water and their reflection, and I've just shifted the picture 90 degrees. So if you tilt your head a little bit and see, it's actually 4 ducks, right? And I shot this with my iPhone when I was walking in the street in Chennai, and I just happened to come across this picture. And the reason I'm showing this picture here is the second lesson in, sorry, has it become too loud suddenly, or is it good? Okay. The second lesson is really about how do we look at things from multiple perspectives. And very often, a simple thing that you look at, if only we changed our perspective a little bit, magic can happen, right? And that's something to keep in mind. How do we go wide before we go deep? Very often the thing that happens is if somebody comes to you with a problem, our impulse is to solve for that problem, right? But if only we thought of it and said, okay, here is the problem. What are the 4 or 5 different ways in which I can approach this problem? And then try to figure out a solution for it. The solution will be a much richer and well thought through solution, right? The other piece is around, and I'm a big believer of this, is how do we cross-pollinate across industries? Some of the best solutions that we've got in manufacturing today has come from heavy engineering industries. Because, you might say, what does confectionery have to do with heavy engineering? This is $1, and that's probably running into millions. But you would be surprised to see the kind of cross-pollination of ideas that can happen across industries, and that's something for us to keep an eye out for. And this is one of my favorite ones, which is, are we truly embracing diversity in our teams? And by diversity, I mean not just gender diversity, but going beyond that to see, do we have people who have different points of view, who come from different kind of background, who are able to add to the kind of quality of decision making that we eventually do, right? And this is something which is very, very important as well. And one of the things that we did really well, which helped us to bring down costs a lot, is, as you can imagine, if you're reaching 1.1 million outlets on a daily basis, obviously it's a very, very resource-intensive and a cost-intensive kind of operation. So the cost to serve, which is how much does it cost me to reach my product to the retailer, becomes super important. And that's where we did a lot of benchmarking with relevant companies within confectionery and more importantly outside, and came to the right kind of optimal structure which allowed us to optimize on the cost to serve. The second important one was we did a lot of time and motion study in the factories to say, For running a certain line, how many people do we need? Standard manning versus required manning, and are there opportunities to optimize there? And last but not the least is org structure, right? Today, I think the world is changing at a very rapid pace. Gigs are becoming important. If you really look at it, I think employees volunteer their time to us, right? And they stick around with us only if it is worth their while. Otherwise, they just move on to something else. So how am I able to have a larger purpose which allows me to capture the imagination of those potential employees, not only get them in, but more importantly, retain them as well? Okay, yeah. The third piece I wanted to talk about is how can we be more mindful of the present, right? So I think here there are two aspects to it. Again, this is an interesting picture that I shot in Dhaka when I was there, living there a few years ago. And I was just walking in the street, and to me, what appealed was how the grapes sort of lined up against the faces of the people. And I shot this picture. And one of the interesting trivia of this is that it got featured in National Geographic does a daily shot, which is they pick up one picture from various pictures that are submitted to them. So this came up on one day in 2015. So that was a nice feeling. But the real point here is a lot of time we spend is about thinking of what could have happened in the past and sort of dreaming about the future. And I think it's important to dream about the future, but I think it's also equally important to be mindful of the present in terms of what are we doing to take this transformation forward today. Of course, we need to have a line of sight of where we want to get to, but keeping in mind what do we want to do today is very, very important. The other piece around it is, do we have the right systems and processes? For any transformation, there are two aspects to it. There is a hardware part of it, and there is a software. The hardware bit is really the systems and processes that we have. And the software part is the mindset, cultural shift, and all of that we do. Right? So one of the learnings that came from BCG when we did this work with them was, it was important to have a transformation office to run the whole transformation, right? So actually, interestingly, I was Bangladesh General Manager for Perfetti, and I moved to India in the role of a Chief Transformation Officer. Now, it was the first time they were doing this role, and one of the things I asked for, of course, like when you join any new job, is what's the JD? And my boss told me that you'll have to create your own JD, right? So I literally wrote out the job description because this role didn't exist. And from managing a team of about 400 people in Bangladesh, I moved here and I had a team of 2 people. And one of the asides, which has got nothing to do with this, which I would really urge everybody to look at is, careers and indeed life is mostly non-linear, right? Very often we think that, okay, we have to become brand managers, marketing managers, and so on and so forth. Sometimes the steepest learning curve is when you move laterally or horizontally, right? So just keep that in mind in terms of saying sometimes career shifts, it can go south as well, but mostly I think the maximum learning happens when you're taking those opportunities to move sideways, yeah? But that's just a separate aside. And really the transformation office's role was to embed the transformation in the organization. So again, I'm not going to bore you with the details, but just to say that how do we monitor closely and make sure that the right momentum is there for the transformation in the organization so that we see that succeeding over a period of time. Again, these are just some examples. So this is something that I just spent a minute on. I used to be the most hated person in the organization for this particular chart. And what this was about is that, we had about 24 charters, right, which translated the large vision that we had into specific projects that we needed to take forward. And my job was to make sure that all of those 24 charters had a weekly meeting to understand progress on how it is moving. So the minute I used to approach somebody, they used to make sure that they disappear from there. But this is the kind of rigor that we managed to put in, which really helped us to get the results that we got today. So I think, one of the key things is how do we have that kind of ruthless rigor and discipline behind making it happen. And of course, monitoring and tracking the spends in terms of cost savings or, extra, output that we needed to get from this. And last but not the least, as part of that is also to make sure that we celebrate the small wins and recognize and reward the people who are behind them. The other lesson, the fourth lesson that I want to just talk about is how to be adaptable, right? I think in today's world, one of the most important things is, earlier used to be situational adaptability. Actually, I would add an element of speed to it and say situational agility, right? Because things will not go our way, things will be different. How are we able to quickly become agile and make sure that we have a plan B to make the kind of results that we want to achieve? And that's something which is very, very important. We will not have everything right from the day go. In fact, I would strongly encourage, can we actually fly the plane even as we build it? And I think that becomes very, very important in today's age, because as some of the speakers spoke about, especially in technology, things are changing so fast that by the time you get everything right, something new has come up, right? So that's something to keep in mind as well. Just one small example, we all know what auction is, right? Yeah, we bid and the highest bidder wins. There's something called reverse auction. So for example, when we do transport of products from the depots to the distributor point, we do something called reverse auction. We ask bidders, transporters to put in their bids, and the lowest bidder gets it, right? So this we tried once, we tried twice, we failed, and then the third time we got it right. And today, we use reverse auction not just for transportation, but across a whole range of anything related to procurement, right? So the point is, we need to learn, adapt, and then move on. And again, one of the best ways of doing it, in my view, is how can we have more and more pilots and prototypes? We can keep intellectualizing about stuff and saying why something will not work, what are the 10 reasons why it will fail. The best way to do is fail fast, learn from there, and move on to something else. And that's something that we did very well with many of the initiatives that we took, which really helped us to take the journey forward. And the last lesson, and I know I'm 2 minutes on time, is about people, right? Without people, nothing happens. So some of these pictures you see here are, so I shoot a calendar every year for the last 7 years to raise money for charity. And these are pictures I've taken over the course of the various calendars. But to me, the reason for putting this up is, you have a sort of a vision in mind, you connect with the people, you communicate to them, and most importantly, tell people what's in it for me. Yeah? If I go and tell them, I want to grow the company and I want you to do this, versus saying, this is the role that you play in the transformation, and that is how, as a collective, we get to a different place. I think that's a far more impactful and a powerful way of doing it, right? So involve people upstream rather than downstream. So we did roadshows to say that, look, if I have to get a growth of 10%, what is your role in that 10% growth? I tell them today, not after I've got the whole strategy in place and then go and tell them, right? So just making sure that there is an upstream involvement versus a downstream involvement. And of course, I spoke about it in terms of celebrating small wins as well. We spoke about it. So one of the biggest things there was, the minute you tell somebody transformation, the first thing that comes to mind is job cut. Yeah? So what we wanted to tell people was that, look, it's sparkle. We had a great thing going. We have a Ferrari. We just need to get it to top gear. So it's a growth-oriented strategy and not a cost-cutting strategy. Yeah? Articulate their role very, very clearly. Listen to their concerns. People come back and share stuff, right? So we used to do small group, focus group discussions, road shows, etc., where people spoke about what they felt. And I think that's a very, very important aspect of any transformation, to truly understand how are people feeling about it, right? And then, of course, allaying their fears and then doing something about it. Again, just some visuals of the various road shows and discussions that we had. I spoke about this, celebrating small wins, and everything doesn't have to be about money. I think it's the acknowledgement and the recognition that really matters, and that's something that we did on an ongoing basis. I mean, the first small win we had within 2 months of having started the initiative, and that's something that we made such a big noise about, and then slowly the wins started pouring in, and that really helped us to achieve what we wanted to. So in summary, the lessons from photography, which I think are relevant to transformation. It's about composition, it's about making choices, right? Strategy is all about that. Look at things from multiple perspectives. Be mindful of the present and what we are doing today. Be adaptable, and last but not the least is connect with people. Before I finish, I'll just leave you with one other thought. It's something that I picked up about 20 years ago, but I found it very, very simple and very powerful. Leadership is all about 3 things, right? It's about setting the agenda, it's about taking others with you, and it's about doing it the right way. Any guesses on which is the most important of all three? Second one. Anybody else? Sorry? The right one. But if you have to pick one, I know all three are important. First? Okay. Cool. We are all entitled to our views, but in my view, the second one is the most important, right? The first one, even if you can't do it, you can outsource it. That's why planners are there. That's why the BCGs and the McKinseys of the world exist, right? The third one, I believe fundamentally we all have a certain ethical, moral structure, which is why we do it the right way. To me, the big difference between a good leader and a great leader is the leader's ability to sort of show the vision, inspire the team of diverse people to sort of take them along in the journey. And for that, what you need is a lot of collaboration, a lot of authenticity, a lot of vulnerability. So that's what I just wanted to leave a last thought with. So go ahead and take the leap. Thank you.